So I mentioned in my South Street Seaport video that I had one exposure left on this roll of film. And so I decided to come to Brooklyn Bridge Park, which has an awesome view of Manhattan. Hopefully, if I tilt the camera, you can kind of see that. Right? And it's also got these piers, which makes a really interesting foreground. It's a really popular place to get a photo. And there's actually somebody next to me taking a photo. I'm assuming it's a long exposure, so you can smooth out the water and stuff. And it's a really cool shot. So, but I thought I'd take this opportunity to go through my process. Talk about how I get my exposures, how I set up, things like that. So let's get that started. So this is my setup. I have my Joby tripod, and then the camera goes on that, just using the tripod mount. Now, I have a couple of attachments on here. So one is this level, which helps me get level on the camera. And that actually is really helpful because this is so wide angle that it's actually hard to figure out if it's level or not. Now, the other attachment is actually this thing here. So this is a little thing found on the internet, and it's basically a mirror. So it's got a little thing there where the light goes in, and then it gets reflected onto here. Right, so now you can have like a top view. It's got markings there for 50 millimeters and 35 millimeters. And so I know that this camera at 62 millimeters for the 120 film, right, that's equivalent to about 31 millimeters. So I can kind of use the 35 millimeter markings here to figure out what my field of view is. And it goes on to a cold shoe mount for a flash, and I basically put that on there as part of the 3D printing process. So that's what that looks like. And then it's got the feet here for that, and then it just slides in. And now if we look in there, right, hopefully this will come through in the video. If you look in that viewfinder, I guess, right, you can see the image, right, that we're going to get. Now, the viewfinder is not exactly in line with the shutter itself. You can see that it's a couple 3 inches higher than the shutter pinhole. Hopefully you can see that. Kind of right there, hopefully. Right. But this is so wide angle that I don't think that matters. Right? So, now the other thing I use, right, is an app. Now I'll put a screenshot of that app in the video here so you can see it. I obviously can't record that while I'm doing the video. Right, so, but it also has the ability for you to choose your focal length and the size of your frame, and it will give you a preview of that. And then also you can see, right, that it gives you the exposure. Basically you tap the measure and then it will give you the exposure. In this case it's about 2.5 seconds. Oops, sorry. I just looked at it and it's 1/2.5 seconds. So it's about a half a second. Now, to actually time it, right, when I hit the shutter release here, right, to open up the pinhole, I have my little stopwatch, and I can just, oops, press it, get to 2.5 seconds, and back. Right, so yeah, I bet you that's not in focus, but that's okay. You get the idea, right? That's what the stopwatch looks like. Right? So now when it's just half a second, right, I'm just gonna not bother with a stopwatch. I'm just gonna do it by hand. I mean, there's no point in like trying to figure out half a second, right? So I just kind of do it by feel. So now it should be okay. I mean, I only have one shot, so I can't like take this multiple times. But a half a second, that's like, you know, like this. Right? So we should be good. So here we go. I'm gonna take the dark side out. And we're gonna give it a half second or a second. Oh, so when I was taking that photo, right, I said like a half second or a second. The reason I said that was, you know, originally it was about a half a second, but then the sun went behind the clouds a little bit, and it became like 1 second. You know, using the trigger isn't that precise, so it should be close. And, yeah, so that's my process, and you know, if it comes out, I'll show you how it looks, and if it doesn't come out, I'll still show you something, right? But, so here's how the photo came out in the end, and I think it actually looks pretty good. Now, there is obviously a light leak that I have to figure out, but the framing looks good, that's what I expected, and the exposure looks good. Now keep in mind that the final exposure is dependent on lots of factors, and it is not just the exposure time in the field. Now one factor is that in the development process, it can be underdeveloped or overdeveloped, and that affects how light or dark the image is. And here's what the negative looks like. Now even this part here, right, this is also affected by the backlight I use when I scan the image, right? So now depending on how bright the backlight is, that's also going to affect the lightness and darkness. You know? And then finally, after I process the photo in Lightroom, right, Lightroom is also being used to adjust the lightness or darkness of the image. Right? So here's the image again, and you know, I think it looks pretty good. So I hope you got something out of this little overview, and we'll talk again soon.